You know what? I'll just say this. Is the grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned?
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
Yeah.
am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're having a really good day so far. If you're new here, my name's Taylor. I'm off camera because I would rather be a unkempt little house wench. Today was gonna be a video called Everything I Plan to Knit in 2025, but I was ill prepared. I did not plug in my iPad, and I don't know that I know yet what I plan to knit. I know that I have a couple projects planned. I would like to solidify those, but I'm gonna give myself another week to figure that out. And then right now, I would like to be a little more productive on completing and pursuing some already cast on projects. But I do have some cleaning up to do around the house. So yeah, there's just a little bit of a mess. I need to either, I think I'm just gonna make the bed instead of change the bedding. I feel like I got off schedule and it's too soon. I do it every week, but anyway, I did want to show you today because I was prepared to show you today. I did knit Chippy a new sweater. It looks so good on her. I kind of wish I knit it a little bit longer, but I didn't want it to go too far down her belly and disturb her like leg motion and whatnot. I was gonna take it off and show it to you. I think I still might, but you can see, I mean, how it looks on. I think she likes it. I haven't even blocked it. In fact, it still has every stitch marker attached that I placed in the process of knitting this, because I wanted to show you the anatomy of a dog sweater. That will be the theme of today's video. It is a little bit unfinished in that I think there's one end I have to weave in still, and I haven't decided if I'm going to put sleeves on it or not. Most of the time my dog sweaters are sleeveless. I just think they look a little more comfortable. But here's the anatomy of a dog sweater. So I measured her neck. It was about 12 inches. And I just referenced, because I was using yarn from a project I knit, I just took the gauge of that. And I knew that I had 4 stitches per inch, which is a really easy gauge to design on the fly. And so I used, I think, US 8 needles, if I'm not mistaken, or it could have been 7s, whatever. I got gauge with 4 stitches per inch. And this is Harrisville Designs WATERshed yarn. So I cast on the number of stitches I needed to knit a 2x2 rib in the round for about 1.5 inches. And then I put that collar on her, made sure it fit, and then I estimated where her legs, front legs, extend off from her neck. Okay, so then I placed stitch markers there. And that's how I determined where my leg holes would eventually be. But I needed to increase to get from 12 inches to the measure of her chest, which I think was, I don't even remember now, but it was whatever amount of inches. And I determined how many more stitches I would need to get there. So around those markers I placed, I found a center stitch, or 2 actually. And I basically did what we would typically call raglan increases, in that I increased on either side of these 2 stitches enough times that I got the diameter of her chest. After I knit the collar and I increased at my raglan shoulders, which is just 2, it's not 4 like a typical raglan, it's just her 2 front paws. I'm not increasing along the back at all, it's just along the front sort of shoulder seams that I placed based on her anatomical shape. I started, I determined the depth of the yoke to then split for the sleeves. And at that point, I just started knitting straight, slipping the first stitch of every row. So I knit straight, and then what did I do? Then I think I broke my yarn and I knit straight along the back to catch up. And I think I even knit the belly panel, you know, of knitting straight, maybe a little bit longer. So it kind of has like a three-dimensional sort of vibe to it. I really just knit it to fit her. So I would knit a few inches and then put it on and test out the depth of the arm space. And then eventually I was like, okay, well, I'm ready to join the back and the front. And so I did that. And then I had, you know, because her body is at its widest part around her chest, it does become a bit narrower here, especially where her like rib cage kind of tucks in. So I added some shaping to the very center to decrease some stitches. And this is where I kind of really stopped getting technical, because I just placed a stitch marker at the middle of the belly. And then I did a center double decrease along here. I really could have, I think I did it every other round, because at this point I am back in the round. But I could have, again, added maybe 2 rows of plain stockinette between each decrease round. And then I tried it on her again, and I was like, okay, well, I need the belly to stop because I don't want it to interfere with her urination station. And then I want the back to be a little longer, so I added short rows, in which point I think I placed markers. Did I? I'm sure I marked it, but I think my markers were on my needles, not on my body of work. But I placed markers kind of just like around, maybe like here, kind of in line with the armholes even. And I just would knit back and forth with a wrap and turn. And then I resolved all my wrap and turns on a round, switched 2x2 rib, knit that for about 1.5 inches or 2 inches roughly. And then I did the Jenny's stretchy bind off, which is my favorite bind off. So you can see it is multi-dimensional. It is not really all that technical. You can see the kind of short rows here that extend the back. I wish I did more. I wish I had a more aggressive angle to the back side, and that would have made this, I think, the perfect sweater if it just were about 1 inch longer. But I don't want to rip back and redo it. It's not that precious of an item in my mind. I'm just going to knit more sweaters and improve the fit. I don't think I'm going to even add the armholes. Although I will say the central point of failure in all of my dog sweaters is tearing at the armholes. So if I did even if I like crocheted a reinforcement round to just protect any strain on these stitches, I think that this would last longer. I just don't know if I care to. You know what? I think I also, you know what? Another reason why I added these decreases here, I did a backwards loop cast on at the underarm of 4 stitches, which added 1 inch on both sides, and that's why I decreased here. So I added 2 inches and then decreased 2 inches here. Sorry, I totally forgot that. So once again, measure the neck, find your gauge, knit the neck, measure the chest, determine your frequency of increases to meet that stitch count, split for the belly, knit the back, join them together, adding 4 stitches at the underarms, then decrease the number of stitches for the belly shaping. Knit it as long as you want to, add some short rows, and then finish with that ribbing and bind off. And that's how I knit a cute little dog sweater. I'm so happy. This is my first completed project of 2025. Are you shocked? I am. I just want to knit so many things. I just need to sit down and do it. And that's really what I want to focus on doing today rather than creating content, just because I feel like my day just didn't start early enough. Do you ever feel like you wake up on a Saturday at 7 a.m. and like you're ready to get up and go, and then you just scroll for 3 hours and suddenly you're just all motivation is lost? That's how I feel. This is her old sweater. This is her sweater that is knit with my hand spun, which is the only reason why. Can you see how well this is held up? I mean, holy cow. This is the most resilient yarn of all time. Overplied, overspun. Overspun yarn is the best yarn for a dog sweater. I tell you what, if you're a hand spinner and you don't know what to do with your hand spun yarn and it's not all that precious to you, this actually was a bunch of wool waste that I carded together, and I think this might have been my first woolen spun yarn. But anyway, caked in dog hair. Side note, as dirty as these 100% wool sweaters do become, they do not smell. There's no dander, nasty, icky dog smell to these sweaters, even though I do wash them rather infrequently. I wash the dog way more frequently than I ever wash her sweaters. And that is a huge contrast to these store-bought sweaters made with acrylic. There is something about polyester that just reeks. They stink. I will not put a polyester sweater on my dog to wear longer than a day because they stink. Nasty, icky, gross to me. Like, I cannot. It's wool. It's wool or nothing, in my opinion. I could probably mend this easily, but I don't care to. I mean, maybe I will. I'd rather make a new one, but once things are caked in dog hair, it's hard to keep it going, you know? Like, this is like felted. There's dog hair felted into this fabric. You can see this chest area way narrower than the other one. So, and I like this little bottom hem I did. It was just a little bit of garter. I think it was like 2 like ridgies and then the bind off. I think that's really cute. So those are my 2 dog sweaters. I also have another one. I don't think I even created a project page for this one. But here is the throw over in the form of a dog sweater. It has a hole, which deserves mending. I can mend that hole easily, but then this happened, and I'm like, ugh. I could probably mend this too. But every time I do a dog sweater, I do it a little differently. You can see I sort of just improvised decreases here. I think along like maybe a 4-stitch panel, I just decreased on each side. This center chest is also very narrow. I think that's one thing maybe I did, and I did add arms to this one. That's why it's held up a whole lot better. Still broken. This is knit with Harrisville Designs Nightshades yarn, so it's a bit more delicate, especially knit at this gauge, which is like a worsted weight gauge. If I were to knit with Nightshades yarn again, I would do a much tighter gauge because that sweater would last much longer. But yeah, and also I would probably not choose a dark fiber for a dog sweater, but I mean, we match. We have the same sweater. So cute. Brian is so proud of this dog sweater. He loves when we wear them together. But that's that on that. I might need some of this yarn, actually, now that I think about it. I used this yarn in my, not that I would want to reclaim it, but if I had to, I could, I guess. But I'm playing a game of Yarn Chicken right now with this exact yarn. So there's that. I have these skeins of hand spun fingering weight. I want to knit into, I don't know what. It's like, this is kind of sort of enough to knit a very you know, form-fitting small shirt. But maybe I'll do like a granny square little jacket for ship. I'm not sure what to do with these yarns, honestly. I should probably keep some for remnants, but I feel like I have enough of each that I could make something of them. And then this little bag here, I have stashed away all of the large skeins of yarn for current projects. So this is my main color for the crochet pullover. This is the Chained Oblivion. And then here I have an extra skein of the Nightshades yarn that I caked up. And this is gonna be a contrast color to a sweater quantity of yarn I've had for, I think, over a decade now. This has been in my stash, and I've been longing to knit it into something because it just feels like a total waste to sit unknit. Quince & Company's Chickadee yarn, I used to be, mega in love with that brand until, of course, you probably know. I publicly read all the drama online. It is what it is. But anyway, Quince & Co, Chickadee, I think it's a sport weight yarn, very, I don't want to say tightly spun, but it has a bit more twist to it than a lot of other commercial yarns. It's like a plumpy 4-ply. Is it 4 or 3? I think it's 4. Anyway, I've had this in my stash forever. I'm planning to knit a Caitlin Hunter design, that autumn, what's it called? Autumn something. So cute. I've been looking at pages and pages of project pages to see if anyone's already knit this color combination. I could not find one. There was a different version with a slightly lighter gray main color, but so many of the project pages are dark main and a lighter contrast, and this is the yarn I have in my stash that is a sport weight. And this is a DK, but it's woolen spun DK, but it feels a bit light. Like, I think that if I'm knitting it at like a sport gauge, I think it'll be fine. I am going to consciously hold the main color dominant. Something I noticed about the general design is that the motif of the yoke colorwork pattern is very dominant. It's kind of very dense and bold, and I want to kind of pare that down a little bit with holding the main color dominant throughout the yoke. I think it's going to work out great. So I'm excited to cast that on. I also still want to knit my hand spun yarn. Precious as it is, as soon as I think about knitting it or start knitting it, I find all of its flaws. It's like the downfall of a critical mind, you know? We're smart enough to figure everything out, but we also figure out what's wrong with everything. I'm just worried it's not consistent enough. The colors might shift in a manner which I'm not able to adjust for. I'm anxious about knitting with my hand spun, but it's another thing I want to do. And this weekend, if I don't finish my Velocore, I'm going to be casting on something. I think I should first cast on the body of the Chained Oblivion. You might recall in a past video, I already did that, and then I convinced myself that I already knit the cuffs of this pattern in a twisted rib, and therefore the body, which I cast on with the perfect cast on, was inappropriate. Let me show you. I convinced myself that I had knit this pattern sleeve cuffs with a twisted rib, and in fact I did not. So, and I also didn't do the same cast on. I did a cable cast on, which is the wrong cast on in my opinion for cuffs, because although it looks nice typically, it's not very stretchy, and so you'll forever feel that just tightness around the bottom rim. I really do wish I had done a one of those cast-ons that looks folded over. What's that called again? you know, one of those. Do you think I should, tell me, this is important. I really want your input. Because this was knit cuff up, would it be a dangerous idea to undo this, pick up the stitches, knitting in the opposite direction, and then Kitchener the sleeve? Is that a bad idea? What do you think? Let me know in a comment below. Let me know if I should do some sweater surgery on the cuff of these. I cannot decide. I think what I might do is just finish the sweater, and then once it's done, then decide, because it might be all for nothing. And for all I know, I might need to knit the cuffs just a tiny bit longer, in which case that wouldn't be a bad idea. I could knit the cuffs longer and then finish it how I want to. Of course, I think there'll be like a half stitch issue in the middle of my cuff. I could just rip it back far enough that it's less noticeable, you know, up and around here versus like the middle of a ribbing section. But we can cross that bridge when we get there. I don't need to agonize over everything now, do I? But anyway, this is a gorgeous pattern. I think that this designer is incredibly talented. What a great idea. And I can't wait to have this in my wardrobe. I am knitting this with a yarn that is a bit, dare I say, scratchy. It is a meat breed, but I think it'll be fine, especially like right now in the winter when it's like quite cold. I think it'll be fine. It's no more scratchy than an Icelandic, like Letlopi type of yarn, but it's that level. And it is a nice fine, like DK gauge yarn, so gorgeous. Love the stitch definition. It also has a little bit of a thick and thin quality in certain little spots, but I think it'll block out nicely. I might have blocked, if I didn't block both sleeves, I think I blocked at least one. This one looks a little neater, tidier. But is this motif not the most gorgeous you've ever seen? I really love this cable motif. It's so simple. It's a ton of stockinette. Like, I haven't looked at the chart in quite a while, but it's like you just knit it straight, and then every so often, like here, and then here, and then here again, there are just simply two very complex cables that are across like 6 stitches, I think. Which once you've done it a couple times, it's easy. It's just you have to rearrange your stitches and then knit across them. So it's just 2 different cable stitches that are, of course, explained to you in the pattern. But wow, what an impact! I love this design, and I'm going to count my sleeve stitches again to remind myself which size I'm knitting. I don't even remember. And then I'm just going to follow the instructions as they're written to knit the body and be along my merry way. So this is my complicated project right now for the coming year. I would like to prioritize this after the Velocore. Once I finish knitting that one, I am almost done. I also pulled this out of my closet. I talked about ripping this back, but now I think I'm ready, because I would like to reuse this yarn. I would like to knit this fingering weight yarn at a tighter gauge. It's already a little bit pilled, but this is a fingering weight yarn. This is like a DK weight yarn. I knit into the yoke. This sweater pattern is just not the right proportions for me. I wish I knit either a different size or a different length. Definitely different cuff, because the cuffs are weird, like very wide, very short. I do have a habit when I knit sweaters, and I've gotten to, you know, it's top-down yoke, so like I get through the yoke, I get the arms settled and the body settled, and then I'm knitting the sleeves, and then I just stop reading the pattern. I just keep knitting a sleeve however I want it, for better or worse. And in this instance, it was for worse, because the sleeves are too long, the body is too short, it's just not a garment I enjoy wearing. So I would like to reincarnate this back into my stash. And I would like to turn this into a cardigan pattern by Sydney Crabaugh. I have so many of her patterns in my library, and I would like to finally knit one. And I think that this is just the right amount of yardage for a gorgeous little, like, no ease type of vintage cardigan. And then of course I have my ridgies, which I have 3 of the 4 panels complete, and I'm like still in the middle of my 4th panel. This is just such an easy knit. I'm like savoring it. I don't even like think of knitting it because it's so nice to just have a project like this going, where if I were on a car trip or something, I could just throw that single skein project in my bag and do some garter for an extended amount of time. I'm also excited to join all these pieces and work the arms, but I'm like sad to see this project end. So of course I will be knitting this in 2025. That's not a secret. But those are the things I'm currently working on in terms of sweaters, garments, cardigans, big things. And that's that on that. I do know exactly which shawl design I will be knitting this hand spun into. I just don't have the courage to cast on lace knitting quite yet. I want to wrap up both of these before I start a lace project. And then I also want to knit with some of my delicious hand spun, like the more, I don't know, palatable spun yarn. This one's like, there's some color variation here I'm a little anxious about. I'm gonna have to alternate skeins because my color management was not superior, practices. But then I also have these 2 skeins, and if only these were the same weight of yarn, I would combine them into like a shawl. But this is fingering, this is closer to DK, and these 2 skeins have the slightest difference in twist. I spun them at different times. I think the first one was a little looser, the second one was a little tighter, and I hope that, I feel like in a garment that lays across my chest, it would maybe be a little more noticeable, but I think in the form of a shawl, where maybe I have another color throughout, I think that the difference in twist won't be too noticeable. So I want to spin more yarn for a shawl to knit that. I would like to knit this into either, I think I would like to do a home front t-shirt or something. I don't know if I have the right yardage. I forget all the time. I count it and I realize I don't have enough, and then I move on. I think this might have to be like a tank top or something. Yeah, almost 300. Yeah, I have less than 600 yards. So I don't know what this will be, but there's that. That's it. That's all. I have so much hand spun that I spun last year, more or less. I forget exactly when I spun all these. I should put dates. In the future, I will date my hand spun. But I want to knit with all of this before I spin more, because I want to learn from my spinning and what I like about it and what I don't like about it. I know that I don't like how high of a twist I gave these singles. It's just like very ropey. This is the ropiest of all my current hand spun available. And it's going to be an amazingly gorgeous lace shawl. I already know exactly the pattern. Like I said, I don't have the courage to knit lace until I've wrapped up some other things that I want to start. So that's that on that. I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Just wanted to catch up and keep you all informed of what I'm making. I wonder what you're working on this year, if you have any lofty goals for 2025. I have so many creative thoughts planned. I just don't make the time to do them. And today I'm going to do that. Today I'm going to knit, and I want to be productive in my making. So there's that. I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. If you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry and Instagram. You can find me on TikTok as Taylor Knits. I want to thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, do please like this video. It helps me in growing my channel here on YouTube. I do have so many new followers since my 2024 wrap up. So if you're new and you're watching, welcome. If you're not new, I'm so glad you're here because I have so much fun with you all in the live chat on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. We premiere my weekly video. It's just a way for me to feel more connected to you all because otherwise it's just me here by myself and that's not as much fun. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and that you take care.
There's nothing funnier. There is nothing funnier than saying TikTok is responsible for the spread of misinformation, which it is. Okay, that's true. But exclusively TikTok is responsible for spreading misinformation. Have you seen Twitter? Have you seen Facebook? Have you seen any of the social media platforms out there? Like, if you cared about the dissemination of truth, right? Or if you cared about like hate speech or you know, all of these like divisive, you know, all these divisive statements coming out of social media and like dividing the public, then apply European style restrictions. Then you will never do that, of course, because this has nothing to do with national security fears. This has nothing to do with misinformation that TikTok is causing, and everything to do with TikTok being a Chinese operated company that is literally sucking up the rest of the social media marketplace. And they want to ensure that they're the only game in town. American owned companies must dominate the land. TikTok doesn't offer the same backdoors that every other social media platform offers to the American intelligence agencies. That's a big problem for them. And also, it's not controlled by by an American that is malleable, by a Westerner that is, you know, easier to control. That's the reason. That's why they absolutely hate it. And obviously, the straw that broke the camel's back was when they got the Israel lobby on board with banning TikTok. Because if you recall, Donald Trump initially said he wanted to ban TikTok when he was president. There was a lot of motion to ban TikTok. This materialized and became a full-blown, he wanted to do it via executive authority. It didn't work, right? Then they turned to Congress. And the final straw that broke the camel's back was post-October 7 when the ADL got involved. When ADL and other, you know, other Israel lobby arms got together and wanted to ban TikTok because there was too much pro-Palestinian sentiment going on those platforms, as opposed to like Meta, where if you say anything even remotely pro-Palestinian, you get banned. They were able to finally push Congress to take action, which they did, and then they voted for it, and then it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and now the Supreme Court is discussing whether or not to ban this website, and virtually all members of the supposedly liberal media, supposedly mainstream liberal media, are on board with this ban as well. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, given the advantages that he got from TikTok in a last-ditch effort, I think, from TikTok that opened up the content faucet for right-wing sentiment to thrive even more than it does, is now trying to save TikTok. At least that's what he's saying he wants to do.
That will determine TikTok's fate. After President-elect Donald Trump, who tried to ban TikTok during his first term, urged the Supreme Court to put the law on hold.
It's sad. It's really, really sad.
Hanging in the balance, many content creators and small businesses who make a living off of the app.
Now, if the ban does go into effect, TikTok isn't just going to disappear from your phone, but new users won't be able to download it and you won't get those software updates. So eventually the app would just stop working. Now, the Supreme Court is expected to make its final decision sometime next week before that January 19th deadline.
I think that it is absolutely ridiculous that they are banning TikTok. Here's Mitt Romney openly admitting why they want to ban TikTok, by the way. I just want to point this out. Here it is.
Been so awful. I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception?
I don't know how
An
you
offer
can
is-
see how badly TikTok has broken people's brains, and I think it's bad to ban it. I don't agree with the reasoning, but it would be a net good. No, you want to know why? Because, and I've repeated this over and over again, TikTok is one of the only social media platforms where there is leftist sentiment that routinely goes viral. Every other social media platform actively clamps on this sort of sentiment and genuinely stops its distribution. That's the reason why they want to ban TikTok to begin with. It's a major part of the problem. So I say, if there are going to be no restrictions whatsoever, then yeah, I don't want the only platform where there is somewhat of a 50-50 split on left-leaning sentiment versus right-wing supercharged conspiracy theories is better overall than platforms like Twitter that is like completely overtaken by neo-Nazi nonsense. That's it. Yeah, exactly. TikTok is the most left-wing platform, which isn't saying much, by the way. Just so you understand, TikTok being the most left-wing platform doesn't mean that it's like all leftist content on there. It's not that at all. There's plenty of right-wing nut jobs on there too. There's plenty of conspiracy theories on there as well. What do you think will replace it? It seems inevitable that it'll be taken away. Yeah, people are just going to supercharge YouTube shorts. You know? That's it. That's what's going to happen. People are going to go to other platforms, and that's precisely what these American-backed and Western-backed social media platforms want. They either want to be able to control TikTok and give it to the hands of, forcibly sell it to an American, or they want to just like eradicate it so that people just use Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. They've all made their competitive products. Okay.
On the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It said it's all the other way around. Typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok.
Yeah, what they're talking about
broadcasts
isn't necessarily that TikTok is woke, particularly. Okay, they're simply stating correctly that TikTok has more left-wing sentiment in it. Like TikTok allows more left-wing sentiment than other platforms. It doesn't mean that it's like overwhelmingly leftist. The argument here is that because TikTok is not controlling the flow of information, they're admitting basically to suppressing any sort of left-wing sentiment. That's it. It's stuff like this. It's stuff like obviously Gaza, but then also Luigi Mangione. Okay? I'm telling you right now. There's only a permissible amount of left-wing sentiment that is allowed on websites, okay? We got to take it out. We got to take out anyone that is a naysayer of the State Department, no matter what the cost.